SMT Nation, we are back. Nation, in today's video, we take a look at this article. I kind of want to do this because a lot of articles are written like this about Verizon. Now, they've got a quarterly earnings that's up and coming. We're just a couple of weeks away. And, you know, Verizon's kind of been down with respect to their earnings reports. They don't have the same upbeat growth model, like thing like what you would see from, say, for example, AT&T, as they present their earnings, and how T-Mobile definitely with the growth. Verizon just doesn't have that pizzazz, right? They haven't warranted much attention from investors. I think they have the support of institutional investors, but they just don't attract new types of investors. And I think this article actually explains why. So I'm going to go ahead and link this for you guys. I'll link it. It'll be in the description. Let's take a look at these elements. None of this is financial advice. This is not stock advice or anything. I'm just going to read what it says here. Now, for the expectations on the quarter, I'm going to move this over a little bit, so if you guys wanted to read some of it, you can. All right, it says here, ahead of the event, analysts expect Verizon to report a profit of $1.11 per share on a diluted basis. That would be 2.8% higher than the year-ago quarter. That sounds positive. Okay, so far, so good. For the full year, it's expected that Verizon will report $4.61 earnings per share, down 2.1% compared to fiscal 2023. So they're expecting a better quarter year over year, Q4. They're expecting a worse year over year compared to 2023. Guidance for 2025, we'll get it obviously, but they're expecting that to be better compared to 2024. So like you're seeing some mixed signals here, right? Anyways, Verizon is underperforming versus the S&P 500. Shares down recently. And this is where I think things kind of come into play. And this is kind of what's going to solidify this video. Verizon's stagnated customer growth indicates it struggles to secure new contracts and potentially signals intense competition or market saturation. So here's my take on this. If this is the sentiment of the street, Wall Street, if Verizon is going to get new investors, more investment, whatever, turn around things with respect to the stock, they're trading like around $39 or $40. You know, can they at least get back to the original value that we saw the earnings back in, when Hans first took over? I think the stock was at like $55. I think it got up to like $60+. It's been all downhill since. This is the sentiment that has to change. Verizon is trying to put, I guess, a different spin on how they want to conduct business. They're talking about margins. They're talking about EBITDA, addressing debt, raising dividend. Like that's what Verizon wants to discuss. Free cash flows. But the street sees AT&T. And that is a big time competitor to Verizon. That is a peer. They see T-Mobile, a competitor, a peer. They see them with similar free cash flows, maybe not exactly the same, maybe slightly lower, but they see growth. The investor is telling Verizon what they need to see, and Verizon can't produce it. The way Verizon is conducting business doesn't allow them to show the things that the market wants to see. So Verizon is telling the market what they're doing. The market's telling Verizon, we don't want that. There's a disconnect. I think if the Verizon investor, or for someone to become a Verizon investor, this seems to be the bottom line. There's some growth at the competitors, and there isn't that same kind of growth at Verizon. Now, Verizon does have some business growth. They have fixed wireless access growth. There's something about the consumer growth that is signaling weakness to the investor. That's kind of what the hiccup is here. Okay, so we'll see. You got price targets for Verizon, strong sells, holds, some moderate buys, 46.53 for a target. Again, this is not financial advice. I'm speaking to the vibe. I'm speaking to the sentiment of the investor. There is an absolute disconnect between what Verizon is trying to do and what the investor wants Verizon to do. The only way the investor is going to reward Verizon is if Verizon capitulates to the methodology in which they expect Verizon to grow. I ask you, and this is, just drop me a comment, tell me what you guys think. Should Verizon go back to look to grow again? There was a time where Verizon did want to grow. They don't really seem focused on unprofitable growth. They want their growth to be profitable. And in the process, they've lost accounts. And in the process, they've sent a lot of customers packing to other carriers. Not saying they've hemorrhaged a ton of customers, but let's be honest, cable customers, a lot of them were Verizon customers. A lot of them were, like, I'd say it's probably balanced, right? Some were Verizon customers, some were AT&T, some were T-Mobile. Cable's been taking share, but I think the investor wants to see some of what AT&T and T-Mobile are doing. They want to see that at Verizon. So Verizon has to do one of two things. They can start to operate like AT&T or T-Mobile, right, and change their business model. Or they can somehow try to spin their business model in a way that actually makes it look like they're growing. They could try to dupe, trick, or deceive the investor. I don't know. And that's not going to work because, when people put their money up, they like to do a little bit of research and homework. But my expectation for Verizon in Q4, I think it's going to be a good quarter. They're promotionally active. They offered great deals. I think they're going to show excellent growth in most of their metrics. Looks like prepaid has solidified and stabilized. Looks like they were very active in consumer postpaid phone net ads. I think they're going to do well there. The business side always does the best in the industry. It's going to be a good quarter. The guidance is probably going to be important. And I think the investor wants to see Verizon get a little bit AT&T-like, get a little bit T-Mobile-like, because you guys saw it right there, that statement. They want something different out of Verizon. What do you think Verizon should do? Let me know. Your thoughts and opinions, welcome down below. Well, the voice of the people, the SMT Nation, let your voice be heard.